a whole bunch of unanswerable questions in the motorcycling world. What oil? Which tyres? What gearing? Which helmet? Which boots? The one that comes before all of those other questions is, which bike? It's a totally understandable question. For most people, it comes before a massive outlay of hard-earned cash. So how do you answer it? How do you answer it? Leave a comment below. Well, I'll tell you how I answer it. It's the KTM 500 EXC. That is based purely on my personal situation, where I am with my riding right now. My journey is not that uncommon. Middle-aged male, history in bikes, wants to get off the tar and see a bit more of this awesome country we live in, have a bit of fun along the way. So let's run through my journey. I'll go over 4 bikes that I've owned and why I've changed to each bike. At the end, we'll talk about the most common comparison of all, 500 versus the 690. First half of my life, I had a variety of road bikes of ever-increasing capacity and a trials bike. Yes, that's those weird bikes with no seats that climbs over rocks and logs. For a lot of other people, it's either road bikes and trail bikes, or just road bikes, or just trail bikes. Whatever your background, a lot of people end up at the same point. They want to get into adventure bikes, they don't really know where to start. So for me, I started with what I knew. I knew road bikes, I knew Triumph. I owned the 955 Sprint. In 2011, Triumph announced their new Tiger 800 XC. Everything I read about that bike made me want it. All the twisty roads that I really loved, could handle all of the gravel roads with ease. So that was my first adventure bike, the Tiger 800 XC. The reasons I chose it, it was a brand I was familiar with. I loved the power of that smooth triple. I could still have fun on all the twisty bitumen roads that I had been riding. I could commute to work on it. I could carry a pillion, either my wife or the kids, and I could carry all my luggage. Finally, I could hit some of those dirt roads that I'd sort of balked at on the Sprint. Now, I had a ball on the Tiger. I did over 50,000 Ks on that bike in multiple big 2-week adventure rides, week-long rides, heaps of weekend trips, day trips. And the more I rode it off-road, remember my background was road bikes, the more I rode it off-road, the more that type of riding sort of grew on me. So, naturally, wanted to try steeper and tighter tracks, and as capable as the Tiger was, it was heavy. So that led me to my second adventure bike. Now the goalpost had slightly shifted a bit, still needed to commute on it. I still wanted to be able to carry a pillion, but I wanted something lighter. A lot of my riding buddies were on the DR650. They all seemed happy, so that was my next bike. The DR is possibly the undisputed champion of the adventure bikes for 3 reasons. They're cheap, they are easy to accessorise, and they are virtually indestructible. So here I was on the DR. All the boxes ticked, and probably 40 or 50 kilos lighter than the Tiger. I set it up with all the things that I wanted, spent a bit of cash getting the suspension fixed, which was probably the best money I ever spent on that bike. Now the DR took me on more big adventure rides. It also took me across the Simpson Desert. And there's just no way I would have attempted that trip on the Tiger. Still commuted on it, I could still carry the kids on the back, and I could take it to more places than the Tiger, but still too heavy. So enter the WR250R. It's another cheap bike to buy. It's cheap to maintain. It's got ridiculously long service intervals, and it's 30 to 40 kilos lighter than the DR. I'd shifted to a 2-bike mindset now. I kept the DR for commuting and pillioning, and I set up the WR for lightweight, solo adventurised. I accessorised the heck out of it and put on a bigger tank, seat, new bars, spent more money fixing the suspension, and it was awesome. Now I had a ball on the WR. It could do all of those rough hilly tracks that I wanted to do without fear of getting myself stuck under 200 kilos of bike. I even went as far as putting my personalised number plate on it, and that plate never even made it to the Tiger. I was so sure that this was a keeper. So what happened? After a couple of years of owning the WR and the DR, I reached a point where I didn't really just want a capable bike, I wanted an exciting bike. Nobody's ever going to write home about how exciting the DR is. And the little WR, even though it was, totally capable, just didn't have the horsepower that I was kind of used to with the big bikes. Now most of my DR mates had transitioned to the 690s and or 500s, So threw a leg over the 500 for a ride, and that was it. I was hooked. Lighter again than the WR, it's just better in so many ways. Miles better suspension, the engine that just suited my riding style so much more, being able to use the torque rather than the revs of the WR. So for me at that point, it was either the 500 or the 690. Now I was no longer commuting, kids had all grown up, so pillioning wasn't really a thing either. The biggest reason for me for choosing the 500 was the type of riding that I do. The last few years, most of my riding has been day trips or weekend trips, which means high country, which is hills and rocks. And in that terrain, lightweight is absolutely king. Now, if I could go back 10 years and give myself some advice, starting from a road bike background, I would say go straight to a 690 or a 701. Then if you want even lighter weight, get a 500. If you're starting from a dirt bike background, and you really have to look at what your use is, you have to ask yourself some questions. Do you like single track, or do you like the wide open gravel roads? Do you have another bike in the shed? Do you do a lot of kilometers? I watched an excellent comparison video the other day on the 690 versus 500. It's the best I've ever seen. Ian from Big Rock Media, he goes over both bikes in detail. He's owned both bikes, he compares all the specs, and he gets really honest about those questions that you have to ask yourself to decide. Check out the link in the description below. So for me, now, the 500 is the bike for me. It's still got a soft spot for the Tiger, and look, one day I reckon there'll be a bigger bike in my future, just not at the moment. So I hope you got something out of this video. Look, ask yourself the questions, be honest with your answers, and make your choice for now. You can always change it. See you next time.